Corridor? What corridor? Ukraine's civilians are still being targeted as they desperately try to find a place of safety. Kyiv responds with fury to Moscow's insistence that only those who seek refuge in Russia itself or its ally, Belarus, will be protected from the shells and mortars. At 7, we have a special report from the city of Irpin as fleeing Ukrainians come under fire.
My family go to east, I go to war.
You're going to war?
Yes, it's my land.
1.5 million people have already escaped. Hundreds of thousands more face an increasingly desperate situation. Here, meanwhile, the Home Secretary denies accusations her refugee policy is too little, too late. Energy emergency fears over the worsening cost of living crisis as oil and gas prices hit record highs. The Queen's first in-person engagement since COVID and a discreet floral nod to the people of Ukraine. And
Отпусти и забудь, что прошло уже не вернуть. Отпусти.
a little ray of light amidst the darkness. How music is sustaining shattered spirits, even in the depths of war. Good evening. Russia has been accused of continuing to heavily shell 6 Ukrainian cities, preventing the evacuation of civilians trapped inside. It came just hours after the invading forces offered to create humanitarian corridors, but only if they went to Belarus or even Russia itself. Well, that was condemned as cynical and immoral by Ukraine, which rejected the offer. Hundreds of thousands of civilians remain besieged in the southern city of Mariupol, where there's no power and little access to clean water or medicine. A further round of peace talks did start this afternoon, but so far they haven't stopped the invasion nor indeed the attacks on civilians. From Kyiv, here's our Europe editor, James Mates.
The horrors of Mariupol are almost entirely invisible to the outside world. But this is the bombardment 400,000 people are living through. These Ukrainian drone pictures claim to show Russian rocket artillery firing towards the city. The images at night are, if anything, even more horrifying.
At the moment, we are ready to make evacuation from Mariupol to Zaporizhia, and we're ready to transfer humanitarian materials to our city. But there is continuous shelling in Mariupol, and we did not have confirmation about safety corridor.
Humanitarian corridors have been offered out of towns like Irpin on the outskirts of Kiev, where civilians fleeing suffered horribly over the weekend. But the offer is only for routes into Russia or Belarus, described by the Ukrainians as absurd, cynical and unacceptable. And who of these would want to run into the arms of an enemy who's done this to them? Helicopters have brought the negotiators back to the intermittent peace talks taking place on Ukraine's border with Belarus. Terms have been offered to the Ukrainians that would amount to abject surrender and the partition and neutralization of their country. President Zelensky is not about to accept. We will never forgive the shooting of innocent people, he said, the destruction of our infrastructure. We'll never forgive hundreds and hundreds of victims, thousands and thousands who've suffered. And God will not forgive, not today, not tomorrow, never. The Ukrainians have suffered terribly and lost much ground, but they remain a long way from defeat. After 11 days of fighting, they continue to wreak havoc on Russian supply columns and even on their armoured vehicles. In the skies, they continue to score successes. This, a Russian aircraft being shot down above Kharkiv, to the evident joy of the defenders. But a new and bitter battle is being fought in the southern city of Mykolaiv, which holds the key to Odessa and complete Russian control of Ukraine's Black Sea coast. It's being defended fiercely, but the battle here may decide the whole of the southern front. James Mates, ITV News, Kiev.
And here's how the situation currently looks on the ground, according to the UK's Ministry of Defence. Now, the sections in red are the areas under Russian control. Invading Russian forces continue to attack from the north, east and the south. They have offered to create humanitarian corridors, but only to take people in Kiev north to Belarus and from Kharkiv, Sumy and Mariupol east to Russia itself. Now, earlier there was some hope of a corridor opening to Zaporizhzhia in the southeast, but those hopes were dashed. And